Before we get to today's episode, I want to tell you guys about a few jobs that are live right now over on Of the West. So first up, 5T Ranch out of Winnemucca, Nevada. They are hiring a farming and ranching foreman. In this role, you would be responsible for managing the haying side of 5T, but you're also going to work on the cattle side of things as well. You manage hay crews, irrigation, operate equipment, everything that makes that side of the business go round. They do say cattle experience is preferred, but if you only fit the farming side of things, they encourage you to still apply. And then next, we have two openings with the Livestock Nutrition Center. So LNC specializes in blending customized rations, supplements, premixes, built around the specific nutritional needs of each producer and operation that they work with. So they are hiring a merchandiser based out of Hereford, Texas. In this role, it's going to be very much focused on ingredient sales. So you'll be working the supply chain, managing contracts, negotiating with suppliers, keeping an eye on commodity, logistics, prices. So if that is in your wheelhouse, you definitely want to go check that out. And then they are also hiring a sales consultant based out of Garden City, Kansas. You'll be working directly with livestock producers to design customized feeding programs for their operations. They are looking for somebody with a degree in animal science or a related field and at least 3 years of industry experience. All three of those jobs and tons more are live right now over on Of the West. If any of those spark your interest, you want to go learn more, the link is in the show notes. And if it's not the right fit for you, but you know somebody who would be perfect, send it their way because that is what friends do. Now let's get back to the show.
You can learn from your mistakes. You can learn from someone else's mistakes, or you can learn from someone else's successes.
Welcome to Leaders of the West, a podcast for innovators and changemakers. I'm your host, Jessie Jarvis, the founder of the West, and I'm sitting down with agriculturalists, entrepreneurs, executives, and everyone in between with the goal of digging into the strategies, mindsets, and lessons that have been crucial to the success of ag and Western. Whether you're carrying on the next generation of your family's operation, starting something from scratch, or determined to climb up the leadership ladder, we're going to inspire you to continue to dream big, growing not just you, but the future of agriculture and Western as a whole. Let's go.
I was chatting with an HR manager at a large ag-based company the other day, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said, "We're never not hiring." If that sounds familiar, you probably know the grind. Open positions across multiple departments, different managers posting jobs on different days, and your accounting team trying to reconcile every single transaction when it comes to posting those on outside job boards. That is exactly why we built our unlimited hiring subscription. It is designed for companies that are constantly adding people, those who have 3, 4, sometimes 10 roles open at once. Instead of paying for every single listing, you pay one flat monthly rate. Every role gets the same amount of visibility as our pro listings. They are featured on our site, they're shared across our social channels, and they're included in our newsletters as well. It's incredibly streamlined, it keeps things consistent, and most importantly, it takes a layer of friction out of your workflow so that your team can really focus on interviewing and you don't have to chase down those invoices. Your accounting team is going to thank you for that. If your business is hiring on average 3 positions or more a month, this is definitely the smartest way to do it. You can see how it works at ofthewest.co/employers. You guys, welcome back to today's episode of Leaders of the West. As always, I am your host, Jessie Jarvis. I want to ask you guys something, especially for those of you who are part of a family business. It doesn't necessarily have to be in agriculture, although I know most of us who are listening to this come from an agriculture business of some kind, whether you are a farmer, a rancher. Maybe you just operate a traditional business as far as maybe it's a seed store or something of that nature. When was the last time that somebody in your family actually sat down and had a real conversation about what happens to your operation when the time comes to pass it on? Not like a hint about it, not an assumption, not a we'll figure it out someday, but an actual conversation. I have a feeling that most of you are thinking, well, never. And if you are like most farm and ranch families, that is probably the answer. And you're definitely not alone in that. And I will be very honest with you guys. Anytime that I hear the word succession planning, I roll my eyes a little bit because I think part of the reason for that is the people who really need to hear that conversation are probably the ones who aren't listening. They are the people who, when the school requires us as parents to go have a sportsmanship meeting, if your kid is an athlete, to remind you not to yell at the referees and to be like a good sportsman-like person, the people in the community who are known for yelling at the refs, they never show up. That's just how that is. So that's kind of my rolling of the eyes when it comes to the topic of succession planning. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Today, that is the topic that we're going to talk about. But I am coming at this conversation, obviously with an incredible guest, but also from the piece of me that I know I want something different for my own family. I want to set my children up with a clear path. I want to change that pattern because it has not been that way for my husband and I. I want to change the negativity that is always assumed when the topic comes up because, again, it does not have to be that way. So this is not going to be the typical succession planning conversation that you guys are used to. Part of that is because we have an incredible guest in Brent Turner. He is a Tennessee native. He is now based in Montana and is the founder of Agri-Generational. He is also the author of a brand new book, Piece of Land, What Every Farm and Ranch Family Needs to Know About Legacy, Land, and Letting Go. Brent is somebody who he's got over 30 years of experience working alongside farming and ranching families. He has obviously seen what happens to different families regardless of the phase that they're in that succession plan and what happens when they don't have one. So Brent, welcome to the show. I feel like you're here. You're in it.
We're finally here.
Obviously, I gave you a pretty strong introduction, but I always want to hear it from your lips. Who are you? Where are you from? What do you do? All the details.
I'm a farm kid from West Tennessee and got a degree in animal science from the University of Tennessee at Martin way back in the 1900s. And I started with nothing and I've got most of it left. So, it's been a heck of a run. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been building businesses since I was 22 years old, probably before that. But when I got out of college, the last thing that they did was they did an exit interview to find out what I was best suited for. And it turns out that I spent 3 years in organic chemistry that I didn't need to be there in the first place.
You and me both. I will tell you, chemistry and biology, those were the worst for me. But continue on.
Boy, I was doing this exit interview. They said, hey, it turns out that you should be a facilitator, a teacher, or a coach. And I was not an athlete, so I wasn't going to be a coach. I did not want to be a teacher. And I thought, well, facilitator, that sounds a little better. Let me try that. I started a financial planning business when I was 22 years old, and I really had no idea what I was doing, but I just stayed with it, and I built a pretty good investment business. I built a pretty good insurance business and a planning business, and I've been doing that for 35 years now. So it's my 35th year, and I fell in love with the West a long time ago. As a young man, in my early 20s, I came out here to be on a ranch with a friend of mine in Wyoming for a little while, and I was like, I got to figure out how to get back here and stay. And so I just kept coming back and forth, and I love to ski, I love to hunt, I love to do all the Western things, I love to ranch. So I finally just, I got to the point where I'm like, if I'm ever going to do this, I need to do it now. So I did it. And we packed up everything we had and moved to Columbus, Montana. And that's where I live now. So I work almost exclusively with farm and ranch families, helping them plan out their business succession. And we talk about succession, but it's really a business. Farming and ranching is a huge business. And there's a lot at stake if we don't do something. And as a farm kid in FFA, I learned early on the FFA creed. And I do have an inborn fondness for those associations, which, if you ever had to learn the FFA creed, that's in the first paragraph. So I just love farming and ranching. And I'm going to devote the rest of my career to working with farmers and ranchers and making sure that we don't unnecessarily lose another one at succession time.
So how exactly did you, and I'm not going to say that you've necessarily made the move or made the switch, but like you said, when you left college, 22-year-old version of you started on the financial planning, insurance, that side of things. How does somebody,
Right.
again, with your, I would say, limited ag background at that time, end up making a career out of helping farm and ranch families plan for the future?
Well, I've always been involved in agriculture. I remember I sold my cows to put me through 4 years of college. So I was always involved, and I've always been on the periphery of it. And I've just been a huge supporter of American agriculture. So just because I'm not in production agriculture, what I've done is I've taken 30 plus years of watching business owners do things right and business owners do things wrong, and really circle back with the help of the Family Enterprise Advisor Program in Canada to really learn how to service farm and ranch families. And so it's the same families that own a hardware store in your hometown. It's the same families that own an insurance agency in your hometown. It's the same business model. It's different, it's hugely different, but it's the same. We have a vested interest. We've got a generation that learned the wisdom of running a business, a specialty, and then we've got to transition that somehow. If they're not going to just walk away from it and shut the door, they're going to transition that into a sale, or they're going to transition it to the next generation. So it's really the same thing I've been doing for decades, but just focusing in the farm and ranch community. And it's a different set of dynamics, but it's very similar.
Oh, absolutely. No, and I purposely asked you that question. I kind of set you up, but with obviously great intention. I think a lot of people who are in the I need to consider succession planning also think of it in their mind of how can somebody who isn't involved in production agriculture help me? They don't understand what I do. But succession planning is not the production element of it. It really is the business element of it. And so again, you're not going to have the same individual be your lawyer and your accountant and the personal trainer at the gym and your pastor. We hire people with specialties. And so you really are very specialized on the business side of what it takes to run a successful operation. And then obviously,
It's part of it.
Yes. So let's continue with that a little bit though.
Well, I was on a podcast. No, actually, I was on the Rancher Stewardship Alliance advisor panel yesterday. And one of the guys who was on there, he said, when I started in doing, this kind of work, I didn't know the difference between a heifer and a Hereford. Well, I do. But a degree in animal science, farm kid background. We learn as an early age, we're very observant people. When you're on a farm, you're observing everything. You're watching. You have to. There's something going to sting you, bite you, or kill you around every corner. And there's something wanting to run over you all the time. So, it's just you got to be watching all the time. But anyway, it's farming and ranching is such a unique avocation. The people that farm and ranch are special. They always have been. And agrarian people are special. And it's interesting that when I'm interviewing or talking to people, they say, can you find me some ranch kids to send to work for me? Because ranch kids know how to do things. They've got a work ethic like nobody else. There may be athletes, but guess what? They got their chores done too.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just, they're a different breed of people and they are ferociously independent. And I love that because you want ferociously independent people to take over and succeed behind you.
Oh, absolutely. So again, I kind of started this off with a hot take, which was a lot of the people who actually need to be focusing on this are not necessarily the people who are willing to focus on it. The 80-year-old who thinks everything is fine when the generations that follow them are over here waving their white flag thinking like, oh, this is actually not fine. So how do you actually get through to somebody who doesn't think they have a problem? What does that look like?
Ooh, that's a great question. And there's not an answer on that. I don't think there is a really clear answer. Now, there is a process that we follow to help facilitate that. And usually, if you read my book, Piece of Land, that story is in there. And Tom Hartwell's a rancher on the Front Range of Colorado, and he's running the whole thing. He's making all the decisions. He's wearing all the hats. And then the medical event happens. So usually those type of folks, they're focused on on their own living forever. There's nothing ever going to happen here. And it takes an event, a medical event sometimes. It doesn't require it, but sometimes it does. And, I remember one time I heard somebody say, you can learn from your mistakes. You can learn from someone else's mistakes, or you can learn from someone else's successes. And sometimes we can learn from other people's successes. And we'll say, you know what, let's get a jump start on that. Or you can say, boy, glad that didn't happen to me. That's never going to happen to me. But I look at succession planning through the lens of a business, because that's what it is. And I'm really good at understanding what businesses experience all through the different phases. So I look at the farm and ranch no different than I do any other business. And so there's going to be an event, whether you like it or not, whether you're here to participate in it or not. And you got to plan for that, because we're talking about a financial institution called your enterprise that is going to have something done, either by design or by default. And so I look at every decision through the lens of, where is money going to leave this enterprise? And is it necessary for it to do that? So more times than not, I'm looking for money leaving the enterprise unknowingly and unnecessarily. So if I can get there and get in front of that event and get started doing some planning, we can avoid millions upon millions upon millions. And we can quantify this, of dollars that are going to leave your enterprise and never return, or we can figure out a way to capture those and keep them growing instead of having to play catch up for the next generation. So it's a financial decision. It starts out as an emotional decision, because this will never happen to me. But that's just someone's immortality talking, more times than not.
So when it comes to facilitating those types of conversations, and again, you've been part of hundreds of these types of conversations, what does that look like? I know that there is not one specific standard rubric for how it works. Every conversation is unique, because every operation is unique. The types of people in those operations are very unique. Their personalities are unique. But typically, kind of give me and our listeners what that actually looks like.
It starts for me when I get called in to work with an enterprise. I like to go. I can't always, but I like to go to the farm. I like to go to the ranch. I like to get my pretty good lay of the land. It's not necessary, but it's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to spend lots and lots and lots and lots of hours with these folks.
It's hard to coach a basketball team if you've never been on the court. And if
Exactly.
if you're not there with them. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I like to find out what's their main thing, first off. And then once I identify what their main thing is, then we kind of begin with the end in mind. So if their main thing is, hey, look, I got this enterprise, I'm G3, and G4 has been working here a while, and we want them to raise their kids here and be G5 and G6. And if we start with that, then there's a process. And the process looks like this. I interview all family members individually and confidentially, because what we talk about in the group meeting probably is not going to be the same thing that comes out in the individual meeting. And I find out that there very possibly could be conflict. And so my training is not to fix conflict. My training is to identify conflict. And at that point, I will bring in somebody, if necessary, that does specialize in conflict management. Conflict is not a requirement of succession planning, but it seems to be a barrier to entry from time to time.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you think your family doesn't have it, you're the one.
Yeah, you're probably the problem. Sorry. It's kind of like when people say oh yeah, I don't snore. You are asleep. How do you know if you snore or not?
So, no, I do an individual confidential conversation and just get to know. I spend 20, 30, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and whatever, just getting their perspective on what the dynamics. Tell me about your favorite part of growing up on the ranch. What's a favorite memory? What do you do better than anybody else? What is your unique ability? What is it that you don't want to do any more of? And then start building from there. And I want to build this business that you have to sustain any condition, including death. And I want to build this continuity plan for your business so that we don't lose another family ranch or a family farm in America ever again due to this. And so I want to find out what each person's unique ability is. And I want to build that almost like a board of directors around that business so that each person is in their unique ability. And so if you've got somebody who is really good with hands-on, I mean, they hadn't lost a calf in years, and you throw them into accounting, perhaps we got the wrong person on that job.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got somebody that's just absolute numbers person and can't stand to have dirt under their fingernails, probably not the guy I want working in the mechanic shed, Everybody has a unique ability, and I want to identify that. So that builds us a business that can sustain whatever. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that that's perfect. So obviously we know that people are one part of that. And then there are a lot of numbers. There's a lot of other
There's
factors.
a lot of financial parts.
There is a lot of operations that maybe have different elements. Like maybe they have an equal producing livestock side and a custom farming or something of that nature. How do all of those elements typically kind of come into play?
Again, that's a tough one, but it's not something we can't work through because this is a business. And, it's just like on aisle 3, you got paper towels and Windex. And on aisle 5, you've got dog food. It's a different department, really. And so everybody has a place. Now, you run into issues is when people bring their egos to the table. That's a hard one sometimes. So again, that's a crucial conversation, but we need to look at all of this. I am so proud of our young people. Jesse, I am so proud of this generation of young farmers and ranchers right now because they're doing things that we never imagined. I will use you as an example. How many different businesses do you have?
Plenty.
And you have found a way to be passionate for agriculture and serve that agricultural community in a number of different businesses. And I think this generation right now, they have figured out ways to bring their passion to enterprise level like never before because of access to information and access to technology. And I'm so proud of that because you go back just 1 or 2 generations, it was tractors and dirt and cows, and horses. That was it. And now they can sit in their living room and make a living in agriculture that they're passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. On that note, though, talk to me about all of the hats that an operator wears. I know you're really passionate about this. I love this. So go for it.
Well, if you think about and I'm going to stereotype some of the farmers and ranchers. When you read Piece of Land, Tom Hartwell is wearing the CEO hat. He's on his ranch. He's wearing his CEO hat. And there's nobody does that better than Tom Hartwell. He puts on his CEO hat. And so he's calling all the shots. And so he puts his hat on and then he starts looking at the numbers and he goes, oh gosh, now I got to make financial decisions. So he puts on his CFO hat. Now he's a chief financial officer. So he's wearing 2 hats at the same time. And then he's like, oh my gosh, we got to get outside and grow something or put something in the ground or pull a calf or something. I got to go operate. So he puts on his chief operating officer hat. And then he's like, oh my gosh, now I got all this crop raised and I got it in the bin and I've got these calves grown and now I got to sell them. How in the world am I going to do that? So he puts on his chief marketing officer hat. And so he's wearing 4 hats right now. And there's probably a couple of others. And when I'm giving a presentation, I actually get somebody up on stage and I start stacking these hats on them. And I go, how does that feel? And I go, it's pretty weird. It's heavy. It's cumbersome. And so it is because you're wearing so many different hats and you're probably not doing any of them any justice. Well, in our work with farmers and ranchers, one of the things that I try to do, and it goes back to what you asked about that person that just doesn't want to give up control. And it's control. And when I do that illustration and I say, you know what, but look, I'm going to give you a new hat. I want you to wear the CWO hat. And they go, what is the CWO? I said, I want you to consider becoming the new chief wisdom officer. And I let that settle over their brain for a few minutes, because you've got wisdom that will take us years and millions of dollars of messing things up, sitting underneath your hat. And we need that. And it helps when they've got a job, because their real concern is emotional. Their real concern is becoming no longer valuable. They need to feel like they have a place. And so I'm giving them permission to become the chief wisdom officer, because we need to share that information with the next generation. But they're better at pulling calves. They're better at changing oil in the tractor. They're better at everything because of just time and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Father Time's catching up with you, and it's okay. But I need that wisdom, because they're concerned about not having validity anymore. A lot of times. That's stereotypical. But again, let's figure out a way that we can extract that wisdom. Let's put you in a place where you're starting to mentor. And, you used that example of an 80-year-old. Why don't we start that at 50? Let's start this business for continuity long before we need it. When opportunity arises, it's not the time to prepare.
No, absolutely. So on that topic, let's talk about that. If somebody is listening right now and maybe their operation hasn't started this process, but again, they are somebody, let's use me as an example, right? You're in my 30s. My husband and I, we have our own herd of cows. I have children. It doesn't necessarily matter what people are doing in the generation ahead of me. I also have to keep in mind what I am doing, that I can actually move the needle so that my children don't have to experience whatever it is that I'm dealing with at this moment. So how can people who are younger in their, I don't want to call it career, but just in that venture of succession planning, where can you start when you're in your 30s or 40s or your 50s?
Everybody has a unique ability. When you read Piece of Land and you find out that Sarah, the daughter that went off to left the ranch and went to Denver to school and got a degree in marketing. And she now works with one of the large marketing firms there. And we didn't know until we started those individual interviews that she actually wanted to be a part of the ranch still. So what did we figure out? We figured out how to use her unique ability in marketing to do a different approach to putting their product to market. And so everybody, Jesse, has a unique ability. And a lot of times we're not getting full use of those. There's so many different variables to that question, but I would say in the perfect world, everybody has a contribution. And when we start running this operation like a business instead of a lifestyle, hey, we want to use every tool we've got. So what can you be doing to making you the best you that you can be? And work with somebody who identifies where your strengths are, so that this entire enterprise is growing. The worst thing that can happen is to find out after it's too late that, hey, I was gifted in this area and the person that could have taught me more is no longer here, and they didn't leave a book of instructions.
Mm-hmm. You've mentioned Piece of Land a couple of times. Okay. I mentioned it in the intro. I'm going to lean over here because I have my copy. Guys, I know you can buy this on Amazon, because that's where I bought my copy. It was delivered next day. It's Piece of Land, what every farm and ranch family needs to know about legacy land, letting go. Tell us about the book. Published last year.
It's a fictional story.
I was going to say also, too, for those of you who are thinking, oh, a book on succession planning. No, it is 300 pages, but this is large text. I would say wide margins to where there's not a ton of copy on each page. This is not an overwhelming read for those of you. This is not a kind of book. Okay, this is a good one.
Somebody in Texas told me a while ago that it was one of the first books that they had read and couldn't wait to get through it because it was so much fun. It was a good story. And he was from Texas, and we don't have any pictures in the book, so I don't know how he read it. But anyway, I'm just kidding.
No offense to our Texan listeners. You'll have to let it slide.
I'm just kidding. Anyway, no, it's a fun read. It's not a laborious technical book. And so I wrote it so people this is a hard enough subject to get through anyway. I wrote it so people wouldn't be bogged down in it. It's not that it's not technical. It's got psychology. It's got finance. It's got econ. It's got agriculture. It's got every emotion that you can think of is in it. I didn't put a lot of conflict because we already know what that smells like. We don't need to bring that into it. But I wanted it to be a good story. I wanted to have a good ending so people could get over the idea that this is, people talk in their family talk about sex more than they do succession, and so it's just one of those things. But I wanted people to have a blueprint. I wanted them to feel okay about having these conversations and not be so bundled up in emotion about it, because you might offend somebody's feelings. We're running a major business here. There's not a business in your town, no matter what town you're in, that runs through more digits than a farming or ranching enterprise. It's a big business, and there's a lot at stake. So I just wanted people to have a blueprint to follow that, look, this is a process. And with the help of a guide in the book, it's Big Mac McAllister, is brought into the picture. And he just, he's taller than I am. He's better looking than I am, but he asks the same questions.
Oh, I love that. No, it definitely is. It's an incredible read. I highly encourage you guys. Like I said, you can find the book on Amazon. It's a great read. It definitely well worth the $15 that it is.
It's $20
okay, 20.
on Amazon.
Okay, there you go.
I've got my studio set up to record it on Audible. I just haven't gotten it done yet. I've been kind of busy.
Yeah, right. I can imagine. Okay, so obviously our time together is kind of winding down. We've still got our rapid fire round. What else about secession did we not cover? What is it that you want people to know? Let us have it.
There's a lot of helpers out there. There's people out there that'll help you. You don't have to do this alone. I think that the biggest mistake that I see done, and I love the governance part. It's one of the 5 pillars of my plan. Governance is where you actually go and get legal documents to support what you want to see done. I think it's the last piece. What I find out is that most people do that part first and they mess it up because they think that's all they need to do and they've not done anything to fix the other problems. So you're running a business here. Let's start off with financial planning. Let's look at the tax planning part of it. Let's look at if there's conflict that needs to be resolved. The conflict does cost millions of dollars in most enterprises, and I can quantify that. And then let's look at liquidity planning, find out where there needs to be access to capital, when and where, and who needs to have it to buy out non-farming or non-ranching heirs and balance in the states. And then let's go to the lawyer's office and do the governance part of it. So once I get everything done, and I train advisors all over the United States to be agri-generational advisors. So if you want to work with somebody in Texas, I got people there, Mississippi, Louisiana, Nebraska, Florida, Ohio, all over the country. We're going to have hundreds and hundreds of these. And we've got a school community coming up too. So we'll talk more about that if you want. But I just want them to, when they get through and get ready, everything is done. And we go to the lawyer's office and say, here's all the stuff. Here's what we want to have done. Design the documents that does this. And that normally is a better model than going, hey, let's go get a will or a trust. And that answers all the questions. And sometimes psychologically you think that's all I got to do because that's what your neighbor did. And he's not dead yet. So we don't know the mess that creates or can create. So I think there's a lot more to it than just buying a will or a trust and putting documents in it or buying an LLC and buying the piece of ground or whatever. So I think we got to train a generation of people to receive it first.
Yeah. Okay. I love this. So let's talk a little bit more about Agri-Generational, kind of what that looks like. Obviously, you and I have talked a little bit about it. What can you share with our listeners at this point?
I would say by the time this episode airs, we're going to have a school community. And if you're not familiar with school, it's a platform very similar. It's kind of like a cross hybrid between YouTube and Facebook. And it's a place where people can go and join a community. If you want to learn about underwater yoga, you can go find a school community to help with that. Or you want to learn about putting together a podcast, there's probably a school community to do that. And it's just a community of like-minded people that have an interest. So I'm building an agri-generational school where people can go and they can learn a lot more than we've covered here about how to get started. What do we do? Who needs to be involved? How do we have these conversations? And it's a free community. So you go and you learn, and you've just got a place that you can get access to information and resources and that sort of thing. And so just starting the process is hardest part for most people. So I want to just bombard them with as much information as they possibly can. I would send them to my Agri-Generational website, and I would suggest that you sign up for our weekly newsletter. This is not a sales promotion. This is just weekly little tidbits to empower you and your family into action. And there's a quiz at the top of my website called the Readiness Assessment Tool. And it's just a quick 20-question test to find out a score 1 through 10, how well prepared you are for succession. It's free. Use it. Get your score. Have your spouse take it. Have your business partner take it. Have your children take it. Have your parents take it, whatever. And get familiar with some of this process, because you got to start it. Nothing gets done until a verb is involved.
Nope, absolutely. And especially get started too if you are somebody who you are frustrated with how things have been up until this point. You have the power to change that for your generation and those that follow you. Okay, we've got to get to our rapid fire round. What do you hope people remember most about you?
I was passionate about agriculture, and I don't ever want to see another farm or ranch go away because of a lack of planning in this department.
What is a non-negotiable in your life?
Putting up with negative thinking people.
If you were a professional athlete, what would your walk-up song be?
Jump by Van Halen.
I was not expecting that. Okay, what is the smartest thing someone's ever told you?
I had an uncle that I loved dearly. He's gone now, but he brought me when I was 12 or 13 years old catalogs of Zig Ziglar tapes and the power of positive thinking. But the one thing I remember about that's kind of been one of my mantras, I guess, is you can get anything in this life that you want if you'll just help enough other people get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Still true.
Absolutely. Okay, last question for you. Favorite things. Do you have a favorite book or podcast, a program, a life hack of some kind, something that has just changed your life and you want more people to know about it?
Oh, favorite book is Lonesome Dove, by all means. Favorite podcast is yours. So, a life hack, I don't know about that. But man, I guess you just be passionate about something.
That is great advice.
Yeah, just find your passion and be passionate. It's okay to be passionate.
I don't want to distract from that answer by any means because I think it is incredible. Lonesome Dove, I just actually admitted this online in the wake of Robert Duvall's death.
Yes.
I have never seen or read Lonesome Dove. I've never watched the movies or /TV series, and I've never read the book. And I am pretty sure that people have basically forced me out of agriculture at this point, and I'm gonna.
I don't know that we can be friends anymore, Jesse.
I'm gonna have to fix my wrongs in order to be a member of the club again.
Wow, there's so much. I mean, we're making light of that, but that is one of the greatest philosophical books, movies outside of the Bible that I've ever read. And I've read the book and I've seen the movie 1,000 times, but there's so much philosophy wrapped up in those characters. So it's about life, and it's, and I'll quote a line in there. He says, "It ain't about dying I'm talking about. It's living."
Yes, that is the perfect way to end today's show. Brent, thank you so very much for spending time with us. I told you guys this is not going to be the traditional just Debbie Downer, what can I do talk that succession planning usually is. Brent, where can people go find you? I know we've already shared, you guys, you can go buy Piece of Land over on Amazon. Yes. Where can people find you online? Agri-Generational.com.
And it's got all of our contact on there. I would encourage you to sign up for our weekly newsletter because it's just good. It's just good stuff that's not going to hurt or offend anybody. And it's just empowering you to start these conversations because you got to have a verb involved in this before anything moves. And that's called action.
Yep. Let's take some action, you guys. I love it. Okay. Brent, thank you so much for joining us today. Listeners, you guys know you're going to find us back here next week. Brand new episode of the show. Another great guest is headed your way. So until then, we'll see you next time. If you loved this episode, do us a favor and share it with someone else who might find just as much value in it as you did. We're on a mission to continue to grow and strengthen the future of agriculture and Western industries, and you spreading the word helps us make more of a positive impact. It also makes a big difference when you take a minute to go rate and review the show. We can't thank you enough for listening, for sharing, and for loving Ag and Western as much as we do. We'll see you back here for our next episode.